What up, what up? WINBUSH here, and today we're going to make something like this. Now this comes from my favorite video game right now, Apex Legends. I thought at the beginning of the sequence with the Respawn logo and the EA logo was pretty slick how they have that in there. And it's pretty basic, so I was like, why can't we make this in After Effects? So I figured I'll put together a little tutorial for you right here to show you how to make this effect. And so I was practicing earlier. I came up with something pretty close here, and I'm going to show you how we end up making it with everything, the streaks and the crackles and all that. So let's begin. Let's start with a brand new comp here. So I'm going to go over, I have my comps folder. I'm going to click on this right here, make a new comp. Let's just name this Apex tutorial. And everything's cool here. We'll keep it at 2997. Hit OK. And here we are with a blank slate. So first thing I want to do is add in our background, which you could Google online. I just Googled like paper background stained, and that came up with something pretty similar here. And I'll make my project file available for you guys. But right here, if you want to Google this one in particular, it's just WS old paper texture, and that's the resolution there. So I'm gonna bring that in here and make this as our background. Now I'm gonna hit S on my keyboard, bring up the scale. Let's shrink it down a tad bit. Move this over here. We should be good. We could probably desaturate it a little bit. So I'm gonna go to my effects and presets, type in hue, bring over my hue and saturation, and just knock down my master saturation here by like 20. See what that looks like. Yeah, so just a little bit there. All right. So next I'm going to get started. I have my logo here, my WINBUSH immersive logo. It's going to be hard to see in there, but what I did is, there we go. So this is a pre-comp that I made with my logo inside of it. My logo is made in Illustrator so that I can vectorize it and continuously have it rasterized. And so what that means is, let me make this back down to 100%, and I'll click this little star here. And so if I zoom in and say 100%, let me make this full res. Now as I start to scale up, you can see my logo starting to get pixelated here on the edges and blurry. But if I hit the star button here, then it makes everything clean. And that's because it's an Illustrator file. And what this star does is let it continuously vectorize no matter what size it is. So that's a little tip you could use in there. So I'm going to make my logo just a little bit bigger than 100%. Let's bring it up to like 160. Move it up a tad bit. And what I did was I just made this into another composition that you can see here. So it's 1920 by 1080. And the reason I did that is because when we come back to our master composition here, we're going to be adding some effects, which if I only brought in my AI file, is basically not going to work correctly. So it was good to put it into a composition here. And what I could do actually is, I like keeping my stuff organized, so I'm gonna move it down into my pre-comps folder that I made here earlier. Let me close these up. So I have WINBUSH Immersive, black is a pre-comp. Now what I'm gonna do is drag that in here, and now I have my logo in the scene here. And what I'm gonna do next is, actually let me hide that, because I wanna make these streaks. See, if you look here where the Respawn logo is, we can see that there's these streaks coming off our logos. And my friend John Haley actually helped me come up with this effect here. I was struggling with it a little bit, but he came up with it pretty quickly using a noise fracture. And so let's make a solid, which I have in here already, but let me start over. So I'm gonna click in my timeline, I'm gonna right click, go to new, come down to solid, and I'm just going to make like a dark gray, but I mean you can use any color you want. It's going to come out black and white anyway. So let me hit OK on there. And when I say it's going to come out black and white, that's when we put our fracture noise on there. So let me type in noise over here, and let me look for fractal noise. I bring that over here, and now on our solid, this is our fractal noise, and it's all black and white. So I'm going to show you guys the settings to get those streaks here that we were talking about, bringing up these streaks here. So first, I'm going to keep the fractal type basic. My noise type is going to be, let's say soft linear. Yeah, soft linear. And then my contrast right here, we're going to bring this up to like 145. And then my brightness, let's bring this up to 37. Our overflow, we're going to keep allow HDR just at default. But for my transform, I'm going to bring this down. I'm going to click on the arrow here, bring it down, and where it says uniform scaling, let's click on that. And so what that does is it lets us take our width and our height, and we can scale them appropriately. So from a scale width, I'm going to bring this down to like 3. And you can already see we're starting to get the stripes here. And then for my scale height, let's bring this up to like 300. There we go. So we have like a lot of large strikes in here. So now for complexity, we can bring this down to like 2. And there we go. So we have our stripes there. It's looking pretty good. It's looking kind of like what we have here. And what we could do next is, if I click on my solid and hit the R key on the keyboard, it brings up rotate. So I can rotate this, let's say maybe like 48. Yeah, 48 is pretty good. And then we can actually just stretch this out a little bit. So it's filling up the whole screen here. And under our mode, we're going to want to knock out our white. So what we could do is go to mode, click on normal, and hit multiply. And now we have our streaks going across our screen here. I think everything's good here for fractal noise. Yeah, we're pretty good there. So now let's start manipulating our logo here. So I have my WINBUSH immersive logo. I'm going to hit Control D to duplicate that. Then I'm going to solo this one out. I'm going to hide the one that's on top. Go to the one here. And I'm actually going to make it into like a very long shadow so that we can punch out our stripes here. So to do that, I'm going to look for radial blur. So I'm going to just type in radial. And we'll see here we have 2 different options. I'm just going to use the CC radial blur. And for our type, let's go down to straight zoom. And for our mount, we're just going to crank this up to like, let's say 211. And then our quality, let's make 100%. Make it 100. And then for our center here, we want to click this little bullseye. And let's just move it over. And I'm going to hide our stripes right now so you can kind of see what's going on, because it's kind of faint here. So I'm going to click back on our bullseye. And I'm just going to move our shadow to where it kind of feels right. There's kind of like an angle here. And if we want to see it even better, we can add a levels to this. So I typed in levels, bring it over here, and where it says channel, let's click on alpha, and we're going to control our alpha and just drag this over to the left a little bit. And there we go. We're darkening it down so we can see a little bit better what we're doing. And I think that gives us enough variety in there. Let me look back at our example. You can see there's like different shades of our stripe in here. So I think this will give us what we need. So I'm going to click back onto our solid here. And I'm going to actually, where it says the track matte, I'm going to come down here, click on none, and use the Luma matte. And it's going to use the Luma matte from what's directly above it. And I'm not seeing nothing. So if I did alpha, it works. Let me see. Maybe I need to darken it down a tad bit more. No, I guess it wasn't that one. I think it was the alpha map. Yeah, there we go. So I clicked on alpha map, and now we have our stripes in here. And I can adjust my levels, make it a little bit less apparent. I'm going to adjust my levels on my logo here. Because in our example here from Respawn, it's not super obvious. I mean, it's just background there. So I mean, you can adjust it as you see fit, but I think that works. So now bring our logo back in. We have everything coming off our logo. So I'm gonna hit Control S. Let's save that so I can send that to you guys later. Let's play through this again. So next step is we're gonna make the glitch effect. So as you can see, it has this cool glitch effect coming in with the different logos there. And that's real simple to do, especially with this free program that I found online called JS Placement. So let me show you guys that. So if you just Google JS Placement, it'll come up with this this free software here. And if you once you get it, you go to JS Placement Classic. And what it does is going to send you you can make like randomized stills. And so we're going to use these stills to drive our displacement maps once we're in After Effects. So what I did was I took everything over here, I just made it all 0 because I really only wanted my my lines here. So I wanted these type of patterns in there. So I made everything 0 except for this one here. I left this at 255. And then for for spacing, I moved it up. And I just played around with these attributes until I found something that was to my liking. You know, I can move the scale up a little bit, move it down, and you can see it's pretty fast. It's giving us stuff on the fly. So once you find something that you're pretty happy with, you can what you'll want to do is you'll save your height. And once you're done saving your height, you know, like I made 4 of them already here. I can make a 5th one, I guess. So I'll name this one number 5. And so you'll want several of these. You can make as many as you want. But instead of messing with our settings down here, I went to iterations up top. And I just started scrolling these down to randomly generate more files. And then I just saved out the height until I had several of them there. And so that's just that's a cool little plugin that you could use to generate different mats here. So what I did was I imported those and I made a Prerender folder here. And let me show you how to do it. So I'm gonna hit Control I, and I'm gonna actually click on the first one here. But underneath here where it says sequence, you want to make sure this is checked on where it says PNG sequence. And what that does, it makes a little video file for you. So if I click here, make a comp out of it, give it a second to load in, and you can see every single frame is going to make it a different, it's going to make it the different files that's in our sequence. And so that's the reason I named them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because it goes in sequence of the number. So if you would have named it something random, it wouldn't have worked. So you must make sure that you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in there. And so we're going to use that to drive our glitch here. So let me go back to our tutorial composition here. I'm gonna delete these, and then let's see. I made another pre-comp. Let me start it from scratch. So I'm gonna click here on my composition. I'm gonna name this one pre-glitch. So this is a 1920 by 1080 composition here. I'm gonna bring in our files that we just made with the PNG sequence, and here we go. You can see it's only about 5 frames long. So what I could do is click on N on my keyboard. Actually, sorry, I'm gonna click on O to bring me to the end of our sequence here. Then I'm gonna click on N to shorten our timeline. I hit right click and trim the comp area. And now we only have those 5 frames in our work area here. So what I could do here is I could find the frames that I want to use per frame. So I'm gonna stick with this one here, and I'm gonna hit P on my layer down here to open up position. I'm gonna keyframe that. I'm gonna go up to frame number 2, reposition it to something that I like here, because when we work in a JS placement, it makes the file so large that we have options here. So maybe I'll go with just something random, some random shapes like there. Click up one more. Let me get that. Click up another. And I'm just doing random shapes. There's no rhyme or reason to any of this. Just you want random shapes in here to drive our glitch. So maybe something like that. So that looks pretty good there. So I'm gonna close that out. And now I'm gonna bring my pre-comp here, my pre-glitch, drag that all the way to the bottom of my composition, and then I'm gonna go back to my logo here. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put a displacement map on my logo. So under my effects and presets, I'm gonna just type in DIS and then look for my displacement map here under distort. And now let me drag this over. Under my displacement map layer, I'm gonna click on my pre-glitch and use that to distort my logo here. Now for horizontal displacement, I'm gonna want to just click on luminance. And then for this second one where it says vertical, I don't want it to distort vertically like that. Because if you look at our example here, it looks like it's only distorting horizontally. If I go through frame by frame, you see it's only distorting horizontally, so we want to match that. So I'm gonna make this 0, and then I'm gonna drive up my max horizontal displacement and just glitch it like so. But if I go back to my example, it looks like we come in and it's already glitched for like 2 frames. It starts small, come back big, and kind of jumps into place. So we could do something similar here. So let's start this glitched way out, maybe let's say like 48. And then I'm actually going to put a null in here. So I'm going to right click in my timeline, click new, go down to null. And then I'm just going to take all these files here. So I'm going to take my logo. I'm going to take 2, 3, 4, my logos and my solid. And I'm going to pick whip these up to my null. And actually, let me make these a different color so I can start organizing these. So I'm going to label these ones green. I can leave my null red. For my bottom 2 here, and just make these dark green. Like so. So the reason I did that was, let me change this null to null logo scale. Because I want to use this null to scale my logo here. So what we did was we started small, or what Respawn did was start small. So let's take this down to like 75, keyframe it, go up 1 frame, bring it back up to 100. Let's watch back in this example. So so it's only like 3 frames, 4 frames. It's really fast. So if you look, it's warping, and that's because our displacement map is being driven by our pre-glitched. So that's doing like all the work for us. It doesn't have to be exact, but if I run this through, it's pretty similar to what the Respawn did. And so in our in the Respawn here, you can see we have like these scratch marks too, which is pretty easy to add. If I come over to here, like I just Google like scratch marks high res, and I just grabbed the file off the internet. If you want to Google the same one, it's like 63494 JPEG, or like I said, I'm going to make this file available online so you guys could just grab it and play around with it. But let me drag this down here into our timeline. Let's find a good scratch area. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my logo, I'm going to come down here to track map, and then this time I'm going to do a Luma map. And there you can see we have our scratch marks in there, very similar to how Respawn did it, but theirs was a little bit more sharper. So I can actually add a levels to my JPEG that I just added and just try to sharpen that in a little bit. Just drag this over to the left, and there we go. It's pretty sharp. And then I'm gonna click on this layer here, and I'm gonna pig whip it to our null so that it scales with everything. And now as we drag through, everything it's all scaling together, but it's not distorting. And so what I could do is click back on my logo, I'm gonna click on my displacement, hit Control C, and actually I'm gonna click on my logo and hit U, It looks like that's not working. Oh, because I didn't keyframe anything there. So we're good. Never mind. So I'm going to just go back to the beginning, hit Control V, and now it's adding the displacement to that JPEG that we just added. So that's going to be distorted as well with our logo. We could do the same thing for our solid here so that our stripes are distorted as well. So I'm going to hit Control V again and distort the stripes a little bit so everything is moving in unison. So there we go. I mean, that's the basics of the effect there. We can let's drag this all the way to the end. Let me see how their scales. So it starts small. Okay, so it's going backwards. So let's say I dragged it all the way to the end of my timeline. Let's take my scale, make it like 85, and I'm gonna hit 0, let it play through, and you can see it's moving back, but the background's not moving with it. So what we could do is I'm going to actually add another null, and this is going to be my master null here. So I'm gonna just name this null master, and then I'm going to pig whip my logo scale null to my null master, and then I'm gonna take my background and I'm gonna bring that up to my null master. Start at the beginning. I'm gonna hit S, hit my timeline here to make a keyframe, drag it all the way back to the end, and then I'm gonna make this one, let's say 90, and that way, so my background is gonna scale at a different speed as my logo, and it just gives it a little bit of a cool parallax there. So there we go. And that's basically how they did the Respawn logo there. Little cool glitch effect, pretty simple. And if you want, you can always like to add a vignette. So I'm gonna add an adjustment layer. Go to New, Adjustment Layer. Come over to my presets, type in VIG, and the one that comes with After Effects is the CC vignette. And so let me click this on and off. You can see it darkens on the edges a little bit. We can lessen the amount, bring up the angle. We just want to bring it along the edges. So there we go. And we have our very own Apex Legends Respawn AE or EA intro. So hopefully this helps you guys out. I mean, it was kind of basic, but I thought it was a cool effect, so I'll show you guys how to do it. So as always, leave me a comment, tell me what you guys are thinking. If you enjoyed the tutorial, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe, and make sure to look in the description. I'm going to try to upload this to my Gumroad or something similar so that you guys can kind of break down the projects and you know, try it out for yourself, and definitely show me online what you guys come up with. And so until next time, keep creating.